Hallo? Hallo?
Ja.
Ja. Läba Sigbjørn Jarslakpeda. Fittan Gatchame. Den programma. Ja. Da ikke tror jeg det. Takk.
Hvorfor går du?
Det kan ikke spise.
Men det kunne spises. Ok. Hvem er du? Velkommen til talkaoke
Hej!
på Riddu Riddu.
Wow! Så bra. Jeg heter Marina, og vi skal snakke... Hva egentlig skal vi snakke om i dag?
Hva skal vi snakke om?
The future.
Vi skal snakke om the future i dag.
The future.
Do you have any thoughts about the future?
I have many thoughts
You can
about
hold
the
it.
future. I think it's good to think about the future, because the more we think about it, the more clear it gets, and maybe more bright if we have good thoughts. I don't know, I think we should think about the future more.
Have you got a thought for the future? About the future today?
Yeah, I hope Riddu Riddu will continue even 50 years from now. And it's gonna be maybe bigger and more artists will come.
Great!
No.
Thank you very much, Marina. Do you have a thought for the future?
Thought for the future of Riddu
The
Riddu.
days, no, it doesn't have to be Riddu, it can be
About
whatever.
anything. Yeah, I hope also the kind of ideas that Riddu Riddu and these kinds of festival uphold are gonna get more traction, I guess, in the future. I think there are important ideas of sustainability and those kinds of things that we're gonna need in the future. So these kinds of festivals are positive, but and I think meeting places are still going to be relevant, even though we are moving towards a very tech future. I think people are still going to need physical meetings and meeting places like these. So let's hope it goes on.
So, you're interested in sustainability and meeting places?
Sure. Yes.
Yeah? Anneli? Any thoughts about the future?
I hope we can have a peaceful future.
A peaceful future. Anneli wants a peaceful future. Any thoughts about the future today? From you, Christine? Welcome.
I've been thinking a lot about food, actually, and where food is going to come from in the future. And yeah, I was just reading about this biosphere where 8 people closed themselves in a completely airtight, watertight biosphere for 2 years. And everything they did, digging up one potato, created a spike in CO2. And I was just choosing whether I was going to have the falafel or the lamb wrap. And I actually thought about it, and I was like, yeah, but where does that lamb come from? And she didn't know, and I was like, oh, then I just had the falafel. So I think I've been reading a lot about food, and I'm curious if people know where their food comes from or care and kind of food they'll have at Riddu in 2068.
Great. You're interested in food. You decided to eat a falafel instead of lamb today.
Yeah.
We have new faces in the room. What's your name?
My name's Tore.
Hi, Tore. What's your name?
I'm Kira.
Hi, Kira. This is talkaoke at Riddu. Hello. Hello.
I'm Sean.
Hi, Sean.
I'm Helen.
Hi, Helen.
I'm Marion.
Hi, Marion. Welcome.
This is Adam. Oh, I'm Adam.
Hello, Adam. Welcome
Hi.
to talkaoke. Welcome to the future. We've been talking about sustainability, about food, about meeting places.
Go ahead, go ahead.
What do we want to speak about?
Pass me a random one. Oh.
You can hold this.
Okay. So I just pulled up. I'll try to talk higher. I don't know what to do.
No, it's
I-
we'll fix it.
I just want to talk about some kind of weird relationship between GMO food and native medicinal knowledge. Native medicinal knowledge maybe shouldn't be able to be patented by corporations, but also like what's the effect, the interaction between indigenous medicinal knowledge and genetically modified like crops and things like that, as far as like big pharma. Like, what's the economy between them is like a question that comes to my mind about the future.
So, more interest in food and healing and big pharma.
Big pharma and its relationship to like native medicinals. I think some people here could talk on that, but like knowledge of plants,
Yeah.
plant medicine, and how it is that the plant medicine becomes a big pharmacy drug, and the money goes to the corporations, but the genetically modified food gets sent back as a sort of food desert. It's what you get back is less than what you give.
That's very interesting, and maybe you can tell us more.
Or maybe other people are saying.
Maybe other people have ideas,
We'll keep going around.
because we are talkaoke and everyone can talk about, maybe about what you want to talk about. Any thoughts about
No, I'm
food
still-
and medicine?
Still gathering my thoughts.
Do you have thoughts?
Well,
Thank you.
I am a bear of the deep forest, and I have a friend who has a very nice story from watching me and my friends eat leaves and do special things with plants for medicinal reasons. And this very observant friend has a very sacred story to share with you.
You've got a friend, and your friend has a story, and your friend's here? Thank you very much.
Thank you for your introduction. That's amazing. I guess I'll tell my story because it has to do with medicinal plants. And you know, the American Indians have a saying that every species has gifts. Every species on Earth has gifts. Well, in biology, what we know is that every species on Earth has a unique DNA, right? So this DNA makes proteins, and these proteins make enzymes, and these enzymes are often medicines. But right now, I'm going to tell you a story about a bear. When I was a boy, turning into a man, I was invited to live with the Hopi and the Navajo Indians. And I accepted, and I lived with them for 7 years. And one day, the elders of the tribe came to me and said, "We want to tell you about a story." And when an elder comes and offers to tell you a story, that's a tremendous honor. So I was very happy. I sat down and with them, they said long, long ago, thousands of years ago, the bear gave us a great gift. How to use our most sacred medicine called Osha. Well, that story sunk into me like a seed. And it went inside of me, and it grew, and it grew, and it grew, until later I went to college and university and became a scientist, and I wanted to find out, is there a biological basis to this wonderful story about the gift of the bear? So, under controlled conditions, I gave bears big roots of this plant to see what the bear would do. And to everybody's astonishment, the bear took the root, put it in its paws. Instead of eating it, it gazed off into the distance as if reading some ancient medical prescription. Then it took the root and put it in its mouth and began to chew, chew, chew on the root of this plant. And when it did, instead of swallowing it, it took the plant and it took the paste and began rubbing it all over its fur, all over its ears, all over its face, all over its shoulders, all over its back. And then it began to shake its head, and it created an aerosol, a mist. And it went under this mist, filled with essential oils, and the essential oils, and rubbed its body against trees and rocks. And this brought the oils into the body of the bear. So what did this show us? Nobody had ever seen anything like this before. It showed us, number one, that the bears were intelligent creatures and they knew how to use plants for medicine. It told us that the American Indians, the indigenous people, are brilliant scientists thousands of years ago, and already they had discovered the importance of this biological behavior that they saw. And number three, it showed us that they created an educational system so powerful that it brought this story from generation to generation to generation, and now from me to you. So, when I hear that every species has gifts, I understand every single species on this planet is important, and we need to protect them all because they all have lessons for us. So, that's all I have to say for now.
Thank you very much. You started with a story about the story that you were told by the Navajo Indians, and then you became a scientist and studied the bears. That's amazing, and you still do that. You're still a scientist.
Yeah, now I travel all around the world studying bears and looking for more stories about how bears are teaching us things about life. And what we discovered is that not only are bears teaching us about medicines, they are also, the Indians believe the bears are protectors of nature, that they are taking care of our ecosystems. And now the indigenous people are thousands of years ahead of us in many ways. And our scientists are beginning to catch up. And now we are even calling bears ecosystem engineers.
Amazing. Christine just spoke about the ecosystem before, or a biosphere. There's maybe some relationship. Amazing what we're hearing about the bears, and amazing that you're a scientist and interested in stories.
Thank you.
You have a story about the bear?
Beep, boop, boop, boop. No, I am an ecosystem. Boop, 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 boop. Boop, 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 boop. I have a friend who sonifies ecosystems. May I introduce you to him? Beep, boop,
Yes,
boop.
please.
Beep, boop, boop. Beep, boop, boop, boop. Beep, boop, boop. Boop, boop, boop.
Thank you. That was the sound of the ecosystem? I assume.
Here we have a instrument. It's a lot like a cell phone, except for it's harder to upload. The wireless isn't working right now, but we can wire up and listen to this tomato.
Yeah?
What you should know is that not only are we all different from each other, and human biodiversity is fantastic and wonderful. We have elbows,
Yeah.
but we're also at least 25% tomato.
Uh-huh.
And so I'd like you to listen to the sound of this tomato. I'm going to attach the instrument to the tomato, and we'll hear the song of the tomato. Hold on. Let's see.
Are you ready for the song of the tomato,
Let me see if I
everyone?
can get this. Hold on.
Are you getting this? The sound department?
The feedback.
this is the sound of me compared to the tomato. You can hear the similarity. Let's see. Wait, hold on. Maybe I can mix it. The tomato and me. We'll put this in here. It's just one. It's obvious. This is science. There we have it.
Take this.
Live from the ecosystem.
Okay, you told us that you're 25, that we are actually all of us 25% tomato.
Yes. Well, some people are only 23% tomato, but don't hold it against
Okay,
them.
but we need to check that, fact check that.
It's only 30%.
And that was a fantastic concert,
Yeah.
I would say.
Wait till later when we play the pickled onion and somebody's earlobe.
Fantastic. Thank you for this amazing concert. And we have one more visitor here. What's your name?
Marita,
Thank you, Marita.
yeah, and I'm from the here,
You're
from
from,
Manndalen,
you're from the here? From
from the
Manndalen.
here, this earth. Yeah.
Great. Let's keep our feet on the ground.
Yes.
I'm gonna block the window.
Thank you very much. Any thoughts about the future or about tomatoes?
I think the future of tomatoes is great, and especially when we manage to get back to be tomatoes again, you know.
Great. So, thank you. That we keep that question. We don't know. Do we know how to stay tomato? How to become tomatoes again?
First, we have to find out how we can have the tomatoes grow as they used to grow. Maybe then we could be tomatoes again. Mm.
Great. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Maybe we'll find that.
I don't know. I hope.
Okay. Oh, there's another face who has not introduced themselves.
G'day, I'm Mike from Australia. Not sure what you want to know about me. I'm
Everything.
here supporting the artists.
Great. Thank you very much.
Are you a tomato?
I'm definitely 25% tomato, but no more than that. No.
You could be 23.
Definitely a bit of amoeba,
We have a
but not more than 25% tomato.
great. Do you say tomato or tomato?
I can say both. Tomato, usually tomato.
Tomato.
Yeah.
Okay, keep it classic.
It goes well with the accent. Thank you.
Hey, are you a tomato or tomato? You can sit down.
Kind of both.
You're kind of both. We just heard that we are all up to 25% tomato or tomato.
Maybe. I don't know.
Okay, what's in it? You can hold this if you want.
Okay.
What's your name?
Blue.
Welcome. Welcome to talkaoke. We talk about the future and tomatoes and ecosystems. We talk about bears. We talk about whatever you want to talk about.
Well, okay.
Anything you
I'm
want
the
to
son
talk
of
about.
him,
Yeah?
and
And he has been building stuff.
He built this
yeah, I
machine.
built this
Uh-huh.
machine.
You want
Yeah?
to tell them about it?
Oh yeah, can we? I've been secretly live casting.
Yeah, so
Once I figured
tell
it
them
out.
about this machine. We haven't really even.
Hello, this is Hello X. We're live casting from Riddu. What is that machine? Blue?
So, it's actually, there's a chip inside here, which I made. There's a speaker, and then there's a chip that I soldered some things to make it measure conductivity, and then it will make different noises by the conductivity. So you can actually attach something to show you the conductivity of things when you put it in. That's basically all it is. And I put this stuff for it, so you don't have to see all of this. You can just look at this stuff, and yeah.
And he's part of the Popu Popu team, and we're here at Riddu Festival, doing pop-up performance and discussions and things like that.
Amazing.
Why
great.
this the feedback?
Did you invent that?
It's too high.
This one.
No, no, no.
Did you invent that?
This?
Yeah.
Yeah, basically.
That's fantastic. You're an inventor.
I don't know. That's up to you.
Do you want to give it a name?
Well, I think it measures genomic propensities for different kinds of living
Things.
living things, ecosystems, all of us. So I mean, I think it's a audio genomic synthesizer. Later.
Later. Later. That's.
Some scientists.
We
have a scientist.
We have a scientist, but we have one more new person.
Hello.
Hello. What's your name?
My name is Hege.
Hi, Hege. We are talking about science. We're talking about ecosystems, about bears and stories. We've got scientists here, people interested in stories, and inventors.
Cool.
Storytellers. Do you want to tell us a story? Do you want to tell us a story?
Any kind of story?
Yeah.
I'll tell you the story about the people from the stars. Because there's some people that has a different blood type. Yes. And some people think that they're not exactly humans. Some people say that they're reptiles. And they're going to take over the world. So I'd like to ask the scientist what she thinks about this.
So you tell us, you just told us there are some people who come from the stars and who are maybe reptiles. Is that correct? It has to do with the blood type? Okay, are you into blood types as a scientist?
I can talk about blood types.
Oh, what?
Take it any way you like.
Thank you very much. That's amazing. We haven't asked about your blood type, but we will maybe find very much.
So I'm not sure if all the blood types mean that, you know, if there's a blood type that means you're a reptile from the stars, but that could be interesting. But the funny thing is there's so many blood types, you could probably make up a story about how each blood type got to be with us today, and they'd all be equally amazing. The ABO blood types everyone knows. There's mystery one with the rhesus positive and negative. That's pretty weird. Is that the reptiles? But we all have a DNA type that came to us from our ancestors. And I'm picturing in the future, if we're talking about 50 years in the future, maybe every single one of us on Earth will know our genome completely, and we'll be able to make a tree that maps everyone alive back to all our ancestors. What would that mean? Who are we? If we all knew exactly our DNA, what would that tell us about who we are? Who's my tribe?
Do you know who you are?
I have some ideas. Funnily enough, I do know more about my DNA than maybe the average person.
Are you somewhere there?
I'm somewhere here. This is me right at the bottom here. And this is you. And this is you in the middle.
Okay.
But if you look at our tree, somewhere we connect. Somewhere or other, there was a mother that was the mother of your ancestors and the mother of my ancestors. If we keep going back, we all join up somewhere. Right at the top here, we're all joined. All humans.
And
So, yeah, and tomatoes. And slime molds. And every other amazing living thing, except for possibly there's a few that live in air vents under the sea that may have a different origin. But we are all related. Our paths all meet with the first life.
So the slime mold and us
Yes.
and the tomatoes,
Yes.
we all meet here.
We all meet somewhere back in time, billions of years ago, but we're all part of life together.
And maybe we meet in the middle here as well, somewhere, everywhere. It could be a
Yeah,
connection. So it's
definitely
sort
humans somewhere, maybe here. If you want this to be the beginning, we're all actually all humans are about here. To be honest, we're really closely related. And bears, yeah.
Amazing. Thank you. And you're a specialist on blood types.
Genomes in general.
Genomes. Amazing. Thank you.
Tomb Raider.
Okay. And so, and they are not just the OX.
No, actually,
A and
my what I know most about is the mitochondrial DNA. So that's the DNA that we all get from our mothers and not our fathers. Mitochondria live in our cells to give us energy, but they each have their own circle of DNA, and they replicate separately from all the rest of our DNA. And in the egg, you get the DNA from your mother, and mothers pass it to all their children. And so we can know quite a lot about how people are related from the DNA in their mitochondria.
So the mother is up here?
Yeah, the mother's up there.
We are
The
talking about
mitochondrial
mothers.
mother. Yes.
We are talking about mothers.
We can talk about
Maybe
mothers.
it's all that we are talking about.
Well, yeah, some mothers like to think that's what it all comes down to.
I'm not a mother. Are you a mother?
I'm a mother, but we all had a mother somehow or other.
I've got a mother.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. About mothers? Do you ever thought about a mother? Your mother? A mother?
Yes, my mother's wondering what I'm doing here on the other side of the world. I have a great mother. She gave me great mitochondrial DNA. But it all stopped with me. I did not pass any of it on to my children. It's a pity. But my children got Helen's mitochondria.
Great. Oh, you've got a question, but you wanted to say something. I remember you.
So I'm wondering, because we're doing this, HelloX is about the future, and we're looking at a woman who will be alive in 50 years, so it could be maybe your daughter, but maybe if you have kids very late. And we're thinking, I'm wondering how things like CRISPR and gene editing might actually, like with this woman X, could she possibly... could her parents have edited her DNA? Could she have been, could she edit her own DNA? And what would that, what would that mean? I try and imagine her sitting here in Manndalen, in Riddu, in 50 years, and thinking, okay, is she even the same like species as us if she starts to edit her DNA?
So you're talking about the unknown, who is going to be unknown X, who is going to be living possibly here in 50 years.
She could be living here, or she could be performing here, or she could be doing a pop-up performance in 50 years.
There was you wanted to say it, but you're holding the microphone.
Well, I just wanted to say that mitochondrial DNA comes from an organism called mitochondria, which used to be free-living, kind of like a bacteria all over our planet. And somehow it got eaten by another cell and then started to live in there. I actually know the woman who made that discovery, Lynn Margulis, who you probably know. And she discovered that we are not one species, we human beings. We actually are at least two different species that came together symbiotically and made us what we are today. So anyway, who else wants to talk?
What species? Sorry, I'm nerdy. I'm into this. Amazing. What are the two species?
Okay, one species was a prokaryotic species, which means it didn't have a nucleus, and this happened several billion years ago.
You mean so like
These are single-celled. Yeah. So all complex life on Earth came from the eating but living inside of each other, and they became symbiotic, and that produced all of the trees, which are our family, all of the animals, which are our family, They have mitochondrial DNA in them. All the microbes are our family. We're related to every living thing on this planet. It's all family.
Amazing.
Okay.
That's very scientific and very complex. But it goes back to our tree and the mother.
Yeah, that happened right here at the beginning.
We were talking a bit earlier about what human will be in a way, and but playing with genomes and mixing stuff, like for instance in Denmark now, where you can kind of order your own baby. You can put together how, let's say you want a kid that is like very tall with dark hair and blue eyes and big ass or big muscles or whatever. Let's say if this female in the future is sort of this kind of creature, and maybe her kids again could be monsters or some kind of very weird.
Because they choose.
We don't know what happens when you mix a lot of stuff and they make new things again, how this will be mixed. Okay, what do you think?
What do I think? What do you think?
I think that may be possible. We should be careful.
So you think we could create monsters if we are not careful?
Yeah. Well, maybe if we're particularly careful, we might get really great monsters.
Maybe we can have great monsters, yeah.
So we may want monsters.
Like Frankenstein thing is monster.
So you want a Frankenstein, or you are seeing it as a possibility.
Yes.
But
Okay. Yeah. Okay, so one of the reasons we put together this Popu Popu is the most serious thing is about indigenous control, like over genomic data. So the most serious thing that we have to think about is are people stealing genomes from indigenous peoples and then, like Facebook, taking the data, putting it online as maybe open source, and then leasing it to scientists, or letting scientists kind of raid the genomes for big pharma, bioinformatics, big data, right? And actually then selling it back to people who got no money for that to begin with. In fact, maybe didn't even want to commercialize their bioinformation, right? To commercialize their genomes. Maybe wanted to share them, but not have them turn back into cheap products with high prices. So
you're saying that's happening?
Yeah, even when you send your genome to like a commercial DNA ancestor .com, like 23andMe or something, they probably have an I accept button online, which is like a contract where you can't change anything. You either accept or you don't. And they have you sort of over a barrel, and it's 77 pages, and somewhere in there it says, and we get to keep the rest. So they send you a low-res online version of yourself, which isn't really yourself. It's kind of geno-hype. And then they take the rest and kind of lease it to commercial research and development. And so if you talk about the people in the future, that people are going to be made from these genes, right? Wouldn't it be nice if, say, like here, if we talked about Sami people making Sami post-humans, not big pharma making Sami post-humans. So what would Sami people, like indigenous people around the world, what would they do if they were genetically engineering their own tribal enhancements? So this is a kind of anti-eugenic thing, which is like, instead of master racing, maybe we're making super proud tribes everywhere. Now this is a horrible, like, techno fetishism, and I don't think everything is gene centric. I'm not a gene fetishist, like genes, it's all genes. It's not. It's like culture and language and getting dressed in the morning, going like, who's gonna think this is sexy? And there's a lot more to life. But if people are going to be programming the human, wouldn't it be nice if people were programming their own sensibility into the future of their own tribes?
You're saying there is a lot of value in the genome, in the genes. That's why companies or corporations are collecting it and reselling them.
Yeah.
And you're also saying that we should have control over ourselves.
Yeah, like even consent to what kind of research gets done on whose genomes. You know,
Yeah.
like if you're Sami Nation and your genome is being studied, maybe you don't want a bunch of racists studying what they can do with it, or like tagging you. You know, because it's not too long ago, maybe even today, and certainly in the future, it's not over. But racism exists. You know, and so does. If we're talking about population genetics, what's that called? Population genetic racism. I don't know. There's not even a word for it, right? We're in the future. But future, what's it called? Oh,
Future fertility markets. This is a reminder that there is already a market for eggs and sperm as commodified biodata. There are different prices for different people's eggs or sperm, right? So in the States right now, in the United States, eggs that come from a university-educated, blonde-haired, blue-eyed person costs more than anybody else's eggs or sperm. And there are minority populations in our prison systems that are being forcibly sterilized. So this imaginations of future humans, of who gets to bear children and who doesn't, is already underway. And I think that's really important to remember. It's happened in the past, and it's happening now. Yabba dabba doo.
Thank you very much. Christine, you want to say something in response to that?
Yeah, I'm really interested in this idea of creating good monsters, possibly, or bad monsters, and what does that even mean? I read a great story by Donna Haraway, who was talking about injecting butterfly genes into her genome in this character that she had. And I was like, oh, that's not real. But then recently I've been super interested in cephalopods because they can naturally edit their own genomes. They can see with their skin. They have light sensors all over their skin. And their brain, their neurons, go all through their whole bodies. So they can actually think with their limbs. So I was like, yeah, I want to know what that's like. And so suddenly her story about mixing butterfly and human genome and whatever, I was like, well, I don't know. I'm so curious. It could it's 99% likely to be a total catastrophe, I guess. Is that going to stop me from doing it if I actually had the tools and the knowledge to do it? I'm not sure. Probably not, because it seems like human history is a bunch of like people who get really curious about things and then can't help but open Pandora's box. So, I don't know. Monster Blue, would you have a kid that could, like, if they could do something really cool, like see with their skin, like, wouldn't you be tempted to have a daughter that could do that, maybe?
So, you were addressed directly.
It depends because I can't really tell them whether they want that or not. So I wouldn't be sure if they would like that or not. I don't know.
What about yourself? Would you put it into your own DNA?
Sure.
Yeah, me too! That's the thing!
Okay. Thank you very much. But we jumped from people being sterilized in prisons and sperm cells, certain sperm cells being valued higher than others, to cephalopods, which was quite a big jump. I hope you were not disturbed by that. Maybe it was. I think your point was very serious.
I'm not any more disturbed by that than anything else, if that answers your question.
It does answer my question. There are lots of disturbing things out there.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you for the soundtrack.
I have a question for
Oh, you knew.
Oh, hi.
Who are you?
My name is Jill.
Welcome to talkaoke.
Thanks.
We talk about the future and we talk about many other things.
Cool.
About mitochondria, about mothers, about egg cells, about choice and non-choice.
Okay.
So do I have a choice to be on the microphone or not?
No, you have the choice not to talk.
Okay.
You have the choice to listen.
If you're at the table, do you have to talk? Or
No.
Okay.
You don't have to talk. Sorry, I just stuck the microphone in your face. We were just interested in your name.
Okay, I get uncomfortable when I hear my voice amplified.
I'm sorry.
It's all right. But she has a question, I think.
You've got a question. Thank you for being here.
Yeah.
Maybe not a question, but I want to track back to the tree, to where we've branched out and developed over so many years, where people have wandered. Some people got light skin, while others remained dark skin. Some people had blue eyes, green eyes, and it's kind of developed really, really slowly. But because we kind of moved slowly, like we walked, we didn't have airplanes or jet planes, but now we do. We move about in an extremely fast pace. So if we kind of speed up, I mean, that's what you're talking about, right? With CRISPR-Cas, how we can speed up the evolution, and we can like get features in there that, well, we can like make up features. Maybe this future X is gonna be blue. Maybe she's not gonna eat food like we do. Maybe she's just gonna put her hands into the ground and she can suck up all the energy from the plants. Like maybe she's photosynthesis. Like she can just get the energy from the sun like the plants do. I mean, that would be nice. That would solve a lot of problems, wouldn't it? So maybe it's not so bad. I mean, we can be afraid. We can be like purists. We can think that no, we have to stay pure as humans. Like we can't change. It's sinful to edit the genes. But that's what's happened naturally. It's just gone over such an extremely slow pace that it's like like it moves so slowly that we don't even recognize it's moving or changing. Yeah.
So you say we should accept change?
Yeah, it's just happening much faster. Maybe that's what's scary.
That's maybe. Are you saying we are losing control over the change, or?
No, maybe that's why we fear it, because we're afraid to lose control. It moves too fast and we cannot control. I mean, we're all about control, aren't we?
I guess so. Are you into control? Are you in control?
I can't say that with Helen here. I'll put the handcuffs away. No, but I have, running on from that, I have a question for the scientist amongst us. With all the travel and everybody moving around the world so much, does that mean that we're all in the future going to be just a light shade of brown, or does it mean that we're going to be even more diverse with everybody mixing all over the planet?
So your question is if we are kind of becoming equal.
Are we blending, or are we just diversifying when we're in the genetic mix?
Yeah, well, okay. What has always happened is that groups have met, blended, and then divided up again and diversified again. So I'm imagining that the speed of that has increased, just like Hege was saying. Everything's faster. You can jump on an aeroplane and meet somebody from a different culture and a different genetic background in a day instead of a millennium. But I think the mixing, blending, and then diversifying is still the way of evolution, of genetic change. There's always drift. There's groups that set themselves apart and have their own genetic makeup, and then eventually they meet somebody again. So I don't think we're all going to completely end up just vanilla all the same. I think the future still holds diversity.
So in spite of the certain cells or certain features like blue eyes and white skin being priced higher, you believe in diversity.
Yeah, I guess so. I think what you find is there are cultures where blue eyes and white skin is priced higher. There are still parts of the world where white skin is seen as a horrible disease, sickly and unwell. Although I think those people don't have a lot of access to reproductive medicine at the moment.
Great, thank you.
We have the other scientists too.
Any thoughts about diversity?
Well,
Strengths in diversity,
Yeah.
weakness.
Well, I think diversity is the best thing that can happen, because why isn't life just one big scum all over the planet? It's because by separating out and being different that tremendous advantages occur, because being different is wonderful. But you know, CRISPR, can I go back to CRISPR and to answering the cephalopod story a little bit?
Can you go back to CRISPR?
Okay, because a CRISPR kit right now online costs about $175. So if you knew how, you could genetically engineer your own children. That's how accessible it's become. And maybe there are monsters in the future, like she was talking about, but maybe there's some good monsters in the future too. And that's what I want to talk about. For example, right now, we're trying to take freedom away from women to make choices about their own reproduction. And the government's trying to tell them they can or cannot reproduce or have abortions. But did you know that mice can literally decide to redigest their own babies, their own fetuses? They can reabsorb them back into their body at will. And many other species do that. Now, can you imagine if you could take CRISPR and you could create a little gene that you could put into your body where a woman, anytime she wanted to, could reabsorb her own fetus so that the government couldn't have control over her? Is this a good thing? What do you women say? So I'm just going to turn this over to you. If you had the choice to put a little gene into you where you could choose to reabsorb your own fetus anytime you wish, would you do it?
Okay, can we learn from mice?
Gee, I can...
And use CRISPR?
I think there are probably women throughout history in times of great danger and difficulty that would have liked to be able to do that to protect themselves and their unborn baby, actually.
I don't think I would. I'll just keep it as it is and see what happens. Live in the unknown, sort of.
You're saying you would not
I don't want to have any control.
Yeah. So once you have once there's something growing in you, you would want to keep that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's your choice.
Yeah.
So can I add to this? I mean, the problem of the question between monsters and like enhancement is that one person's enhancement is another person's derangement, right? So there's also a lot of side effects. So like if we're making genetically modified humans, should they be allowed in the environment or will it upset the environment? Also, we were talking about this lineage, right? The tree of mothers. But if you think of 1,000 vaginas above your head, all of our heads, right? Just look up and see 1,000 vaginas, and it is about time. That's a clock, right? That's only like 30,000 years. That's all we know, and we've been going for like millions. But 1,000 vaginas over your head, it is a little slower than like just throwing in a gene from an alligator and a cephalopod and stuff like that. So it's not just speeding up, but a lot of what happened wasn't intentional. It was random mutation, and then some stuff worked out. What that means is it's not just slow, but it's slow, free jazz, right? And then you have people that are like, let's jam in an alligator gene so that we can, like, you know, have longer tails. And I'm like, that's cool, man. You know, but that's like fast, hardcore Norwegian metal jazz, right? And it is kind of random. We don't really know what we're doing. Like Riddu was saying, then you get one person with an alligator tail and another with like skin that can see, and then you have a giant tail that can see. What the fuck is that? Like, you don't even know, you know, like, so like a few generations later, one's version 6.2 alligator tail, they're out of date, and the other's like cephalopod build 24, and like they don't even agree, and you just get like something else completely, and your kids are so pissed and your grandkids are even madder. And like, so I mean, on the other hand, if you said something that was against enhancement. Similar to this idea of absorbing your fetuses as a kind of enhancement, most people would say that's not a health issue. Curing cancer is. I think a lot of feminists would say it is a health issue, right? It's my choice, and if I could just blink it away, I would. But what about what one person might find really awful, most people would find really awful, and another person would say yes? Like making trees with human anuses, right? And saying like, it's the new human. I just love difference. I love diversity, and I want to also have anal sex with a tree. Like, and it's got to be human because I'm human-centric. So is that enhancement of
one person,
of the nature?
not for another.
You know, so I mean, like, what is that? Tell us about who gets to curate? Who gets to curate the new humans? Like, is it?
Anyone with $187.
Yeah, that's kind of free form. That's almost. I like the democratization idea, but it might also be like the people with the knowledge and the skills to really make the models that will sell commercially and the popular trends worldwide. It looks a little bit like Eurovision to me, like the Eurovision aesthetic of the human, which might be okay, you know, if you like pop. I like slow noise free jazz.
So you're
I'm
saying
with you, Marita. Like that.
You're saying any change that we create may be unwanted, may have bad effects. Thank you. Do you want to be a monster? Do you want to turn into a monster?
I think we already are. Like, look at us. Look at us. Look what I can do. Huh? Huh? I got elbows, man. There's nostrils. You can, like, I can put my finger in your nose, and it fits. Look, it fits in your ear. It fits in your nose. You can put yours in mine. It fits in mine. That's because we're, like, mostly clones anyway. But what are we doing with fingers and nostrils? You and me both. We're monsters.
We are.
Wow! Pick each other's nose, monsters.
That was a revelation for me. I thought I must have known that.
Yeah, it was good.
But it still was a revelation.
Oh, yeah. Oh, bring that machine over here. We're all linked up by nostrils and ear holes. There we go.
Orifice twister.
We're playing orifice twister. You can stick it. You can stick it in. Look, she won't do it. She won't do it.
No one is being forced here. No one's being forced here. Everything is free choice here. Oh, but we have a new person. Welcome to talkaoke. Everyone can participate and everyone can listen. You don't have to say anything. You want to tell us? You want to tell us your name?
My name is Hoke.
Hi, welcome, Hoke.
Nice to meet you.
Welcome to the future.
Let's see what I'm listening, and all right. So
you can hold this
on a day-to-day in my life. I know about genetic engineering, and I know about science and physics because I learn about it by watching TV and reading magazines and the Huffington Post. And so that's how I know that this stuff is real. Because I read it on the Huffington Post and in magazines in the newspaper. But then we're talking about imagery that looks a lot like Egyptian mythological hieroglyphics, or Babylonian, the lion with the person's head, or the person with the lion's head. So, and we read about these things in sort of sacred text. So what's the difference between the sacred text and the Huffington Post? Because all it leads me to is believing that this is the truth. So, for a lot of people, including me, based on my level of knowledge and understanding, this is all faith-based.
It's about everyone's truth, choosing what's true,
because, well, yeah, not so much that, but in popular imagination, that so we can do things. We can put flounder DNA into tomatoes so that they don't freeze. Pretty cool. But as far as I'm concerned, that is ridiculous. And they say that it's true. And so I can grow tomatoes in my garden, and they're very freeze resistant. But to a certain extent, from where I stand, that's still faith-based. Because I don't really understand the science of it. And so I think maybe that's why these days we see people calling science a new religion or something, because of our the layman's lack of understanding of the subject matter in its entirety.
Are you saying you just don't have any choice but to believe?
Well, we all have a choice whether to believe or not, but that's sort of the paradigm. Right.
Did you have a thought? No.
I guess I have a thought. I don't know. I don't know if you're talking about like fake news versus real news, and is this working?
I think it is.
And start questioning. So somebody gives what they perceive of the world. I saw this. I saw Riddu Riddu. You report it, and someone else says, "Well, I don't know if what you're saying is really true. I don't know if I believe you," and you're like reporting what I guess is the truth because I see it and I'm here. Or in science, they don't just come up with an idea and print it in a magazine. They actually have to go through many years of research and experimenting, and then until you start getting the same result each time, then maybe you can start to say that this seems to work. So faith is when I read the Bible and I'm told this is true, but I can't see the proof of it. Science is where it's very difficult. You have to really prove something before you can publish it. So that's where, I don't know, like if you're going to question science, I don't know, I heard the sound of so I started.
That's from the tomato. It's the tomato. So you're questioning science less than the Bible.
Yeah.
Thank you. Some people may.
And I'm just suggesting that for a lot of people, whether they believe in science or not, that for a lot of people it actually has become a faith-based system. Science. In layman's terms.
Yeah. Science, a new religion?
I don't like that idea.
But in science, you always find you find new things. So there's always a new answer coming up by someone. So if you believe something, yeah, there were people believing that the Earth is flat, and some do still. And then we found out the Earth is a sort of a round ball floating in the air. And then you know, maybe there is something new coming up.
We have new people coming up here. But you have some.
So I think that the idea for someone like me that that you think that you hear this, that science is a religion, that there's a certain amount of faith in, say, the Huffington Post or the New York Times or various other outlets, Nature magazine or so on. But I think that we do a lot of science communication for Hello X, and the difference I believe there is a fundamental difference between evidence-based work and that science that relies just on faith is not being done well enough, and also is not being communicated well enough, because evidence-based work is really different, and it's really important, and you can always tell the difference between a religious leader and I would say a good scientist. There's bad scientists, just like bad doctors or anything, but a good scientist will always be open to being wrong, and will always say, listen, if you repeat this experiment and it's wrong, you've done me a lot of good. So if I'm willing to be wrong and I'm willing to be open to new data, then I'm a good scientist who's working in the community, and I'm making evidence-based knowledge really grow. And so, but this is really hard. But and a lot of the advances, or you can call them advances. I don't know. I can call them advances or whatever. Maybe they're not. Maybe we're already monsters, and we're just discovering it every morning when we read the paper. But let's call them some advances, like antibiotics, say. These are created because of evidence-based work that's done in a community way, and that every person actually can observe and has a lot of evidence themselves. So citizen science is the idea that we actually trust what we observe, that we have a lot of evidence. And what I think is really sad is that people ignore the evidence that they see themselves, and they will believe something that somebody else says. And why that is so, I have guesses. But I do think that it's important. I mean, I'm a documentary filmmaker. It's a little different from journalism, but it's related. It's kind of a cross between art and journalism. And I think that this idea that evidence doesn't matter is alarming and disturbing, and it's something that we have to fight. We're just not communicating well enough if there is a deep confusion between something that is purely faith-based and an evidence-based assertion.
Yeah, we had that reminds me of the story of the bear. That was a story. Yeah. But he observed the actual bear, and it showed that it was not made up, or it was not fantasy, pure fantasy. Can you wait 1 second? Or you are also waiting, I know. There are 2 people responding.
Okay.
Oh, but you say sorry.
Oh, okay, you gave my microphone here.
Yes,
okay.
you.
I think it's about being open and not like, okay, this is the truth or this is the truth, or more being open for things, because, yeah, looking at things, as you say, Christine, being open always and still kind of go the way where things are kind of looking as this is when you find out something, you have evidence. Yeah, you have some kind of evidence, and you kind of follow it until you know something is untrue or true, and then even that can be wrong, but you have to follow something.
Thank you. Oh, you were both waiting.
Okay. Well, I just want to track back to what you said about science that was doing like real research. So we look at the scientist as some kind of authority, right? He knows the answers, he's doing proper work. Then again, a lot of research is also about, it starts out as experiments. And you don't really know what you're researching. And that kind of experimentation is also, you know, a scientist would go about it to do good. I want to track back to what was mentioned earlier on the table, that now you could get kits available online for a couple of $100 that would give you the tools you need to do some basic CRISPR-Cas editing. So what does that mean? That means that someone without these scientific goals or purpose can start experimenting with that technology. That's kind of scary, and it's also happening. But what I'm most scared of, it's not those garage gene editing entrepreneurs that dabble with CRISPR-Cas and maybe do some enhanced muscles of myostatin or whatever. It's It's the people that wants to do this for the money, for the novelty. People that is nourishing our dreams of living forever. And they build and they build big companies and they test out the technology to see if we can elongate our telomeres.
What's
to
telomeres?
Telomeres is like every time your cell is renewing itself, it makes a copy.
Yeah.
And then the copies, you know how it is when you make copies on the copy machine?
Yes.
You know, they get kind of bad quality in the end, right? And that's what happens when the cells are dividing and renewing themselves. They get constantly like in a worse condition because the telomeres are getting shorter. And now there are claims to be reversing that technology so that you can be younger, maybe even grow younger. And the companies that is behind that kind of technologies, you know, they got lots of money. And they're going to be backed up by other people that has lots of money. And that's when it gets scary. Really scary.
Oh, for the wind, right?
It's his mic that's giving us wind. That's the thing.
Okay, fine.
No, it's okay.
Maybe he hold it in the front.
We just use this one. Okay.
Yeah.
We just use this
I was kind of done. Does anyone want to?
Yeah, she's been waiting.
So, do you want to get younger, or you're happy the way things go?
You know what? I'll grow old with wrinkles happily as long as it's smiling wrinkles. I'll be so happy.
Great, thank you very much.
I guess we've moved on, so I don't necessarily want to go back to something else.
You go back.
Do what you like.
When we were talking about results and truth and what to believe and religion and science, and I was thinking about corporate science. Corporations can run science tests and get results that aren't necessarily things you'd want to believe in. They kind of fudge their own results. So in that case, maybe you can't trust what they're discovering or creating. But the science and what you can prove when going back to the bear, and the bear holding the root and listening and then knowing exactly what to do. So I've been taught this from Dina Falcone, who when you forage, you can take a leaf and sort of hold on to it, and if you listen, a part of your body will sort of tell you this is for this part of the body. And I think that these are things that indigenous people knew, that maybe we all knew as we grew with nature. And what he was also saying about Lim Margulis, how we have the organisms on us and on the trees and in the air, and that we're all related. But that seems like a religion. Religion sort of says that. It says if you pray, you'll change things. But how can you prove that? And now science is finally catching up, I think, to what indigenous people know intuitively. And that's one way of sort of proving religion and proving the things that we know intuitively but can't explain why. So I think science is trying to catch up. It's finally, through physics and things, catching up.
You mentioned a lot of different things. You started with corporate science.
Yeah, because
that is maybe questionable.
Yeah.
Potentially questionable because it has different motives.
Yes.
The motive is profit.
Yeah.
And then you ended up with maybe listening to ourselves
when
we relate to a leaf that we find.
Right.
And how that relates to our bodies.
Yeah, and intuition.
That's an important thing.
Yeah, there's different kinds of science.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had heard about people's science. We've now heard about corporate science. There's science that's been written about in the Huffington Post. We have 2 scientists, and we have a woman. 3.
4.
Future scientists. And today we can all be scientists. We all observed and we all study what's happening around us. And I guess that has to do with taking time and taking something seriously.
Yeah, maybe you have something to say, going back to...
We've been talking a lot since your story. Since your story with the bear. Anyone can moderate. Anyone can moderate. A lot has happened since your story with the bear. We've been speaking about science.
Well, I really like what you said about the indigenous people being way ahead of scientists, and this is absolutely certain that the indigenous people are still, right now, thousands of years ahead of our scientists. And we see breakthroughs constantly happening in our culture that the indigenous people knew long, long ago. Even the bear is an example of that. But one question we have in the world today is how much of the planet should we protect and keep in a natural condition? Okay? Our scientists say, oh, we just need to have a few parks. And we'll just protect nature in the parks and everything else is expendable. Some other people say, well, we have to protect half of the earth and then the rest of it we can destroy. But the indigenous people say, no, we protect everything. We protect all of nature, all of people, all the animals, all of the species on Earth. And they are correct because we are living on a planet that is one global ecosystem. It's like a living being. Some people call it Mother Nature. Lynn Margulis called it Gaia. Yeah, Gaia hypothesis. And they were right, in my opinion. My perspective as a scientist is that we cannot protect nature in parks. We cannot protect nature by protecting half of the earth. It would be like trying to make a person healthy by healing a finger and a toe and an ear.
You have a cancer somewhere, but you just hear the finger.
Yeah, you just hear the finger. No, that's like a park, okay? Or some people say maybe we'll protect half of the earth. That would be like trying to heal half of your body. No, you have to heal all of the body. And everything in nature is sacred. The indigenous people are right about that. Science is going to confirm that and is slowly confirming it right now. And we need every single species. So does anybody have any other way of protecting the planet other than protecting all of it? If you do, please tell me.
So, I guess. Okay, you speak.
We have to collaborate, everywhere in doing so.
Yeah.
Taking care of stuff. But I was thinking this thing we call science because, science, everybody's sort of science, but there is a difference between different kind of sciences and scientists, as we were talking about.
Yeah, all sorts of specializations.
And who can we call like the true scientist, who has the, I think maybe that's the thing, going back to the knowledge that is from before that people already have actually. Yeah.
And thank you. And I guess you also spoke about the idea of humans being separate from nature, and we are maybe not so separate from nature. Yeah.
Could I ask the children whether they think we should protect all of the earth? I'm going to ask you. Should we protect all of nature?
Yes. Space. Yes.
That's the future.
I have something to say about that.
Yes, please.
I heard a gardener recently say that the best fertilizer is a gardener's footsteps. And I think maybe instead of there's this idea of protecting nature by staying away from it and removing the human, which if we stay on that road, we're convincing ourselves that we're actually the biggest problem in nature to the point where we're guilty even being alive. And that I think, to make a footprint and have that be an ugly thing is a big mistake. And that instead we all need to engage with it and learn from that. And so that, yes, we do want to make a footprint, but have it be one that has a net positive instead of taking away.
So we need to be part of it.
We are part of it.
Yeah.
I really agree with that, and I agree with the idea that we emerged from nature. We live in you can call it a biosphere, you can call it Gaia, You can call it a lot of things. One thing I did want to address was when you said that indigenous like knowledge about ecosystems is intuition based. I don't believe that's true. I believe it's evidence based. I believe that they've been observing and working within nature very carefully, and that is why they're so far ahead. Is because they depended on it. They probably, through generations, had reached some very difficult times. And that's when they realized, oh, never take more than half of anything. Ask an animal before you kill it, because there are some animals that you shouldn't kill or trees that you shouldn't cut and certain things. And that may sound mystical, but I think that I believe that they couldn't have come upon it randomly. I just don't think it's possible. And also you have lots of independent groups who come up with very similar ideas, and I feel like that can only come out because they've been observing and experimenting for thousands of years. And so these experiments are valid. And what biologists are finding is that they're extremely valid and they're extremely sophisticated. And even though the data sets maybe don't go back as far, the data sets that would be comparable now is that a lot of the proposals or theses that come out of it are in fact more or less usable, practicable truths.
So evidence and experiment, and before we had been also talking about there was corporate science that's motivated by profit, and people science that's as old as people are, that's motivated by evidence, that's benefiting.
So new religion,
in nature.
deep listening. Everybody just listen to you, to everything. Listening.
A religion that's listening, and that's listening to change maybe as well.
To the world.
I just wanted to give like a few examples of where the modern world is learning from indigenous cultures. For example, when we're looking for plant-based medicines, there was this big push. Everyone went, wow, let's go to the rainforest and collect all the plants and they'll be full of medicines. And they go to the rainforest and they take 100 plants and 1 or 2 seem to have something useful. They could screen them and there's like maybe 1 or 2%. And then somebody thought, let's ask the people who live in the rainforest what they use, and they collect 100 plants from them that they say are useful, and 30% already have a really useful, cancer fighting drug, or so straight away we realize, oh, okay, yeah, for thousands of years they had spent the time testing the plants. They've already done the first screening, and so that's just one example of where indigenous people aren't randomly picking things and making up that it's a herb. They've noticed there are properties. It may not have the properties that ultimately get used in commercial medicine, but there's bioactive compounds, and they've noted, they've observed an animal using it or whatever. Yeah, so there's absolute kind of concrete evidence for people throughout our past history having noticed the world around them and really found things that work, and they did work for them for all those years.
Great to hear that from you as a scientist. Thank you very much. There's hope in science. Hope in scientists. Thank you.
About medicinal plant use, a friend of mine, Mark Plotkin, works down in the Amazon rainforest, and he worked with one man who knows 2,000 plants which contain medical uses on their own, and then when you combine some of those 2,000 together in combination, formulated, they have additional medical properties. And so we have a story in ethnobotany, a very short story I'll tell you. There was a person who was ready to graduate. She was studying herbal medicine, and she went to her teacher and she said, I'm ready to graduate. What would be my final exam? And the teacher said, for your final exam, go out into nature and find 2 plants which have no medical value and bring those back to me. So she was gone for a day, didn't come back. She was gone for a week, didn't come back. She was gone for a month, still didn't come back. After 2 months, she came back. She said, I cannot find any plant on earth that doesn't have a medical benefit. And she said, her professor said, you graduate.
That's an amazing story. And I assume she learned a lot about all the plants that she didn't know and that she assumed wouldn't have any help, medical use.
Yeah, we had a visitor here some years ago. It's from the rainforest, from Arara Indians, like Donna Francesca. She's a medicine woman. And she was, she's been making medicine for a long, long time to her tribe and stuff like that. And then my cousin were living with her for a year or so and learned a lot. And they came here and we had a walk like around here. And she's like, oh, this you can use and this, because she even recognized all the plants here, even though she came from the rainforest. So it's interesting, I think.
I assume many of the same plants.
Yeah, many of similar related plants, so you can. Yeah.
Hey Marina, welcome back.
I'm not really back. I'm just taking a
You're listening and posting, and you?
I'm also listening.
You're listening. Marina is Anneli is recording. Do you have a last thought before you're leaving?
How long are you going to stay here, Valentin? Are you doing this thing all the time?
Not all the time. Maybe
Might be come back.
Half an hour. Or
Okay,
40
tomorrow
minutes?
as well?
Maybe not.
Okay. This is nice.
I think it's very nice. It's so nice that you're here. It's good to listen.
Oh, you have a thought?
Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that we have these bags.
Yeah.
They made of recycled plastic.
Yeah.
Water bottles. So just take 1 or 2. They don't last that long, but they're quite
Do
nice.
you think? Have you tried?
Yeah.
Do they break?
Yeah, I think they didn't last more than like 2 weeks.
That is sad.
For your shopping?
That is sad.
Yeah, I'm using a lot. I'm using these bags a lot.
But good that you're sincere with us.
Yeah, so just take 2 or 3.
Yeah. And maybe recycle them after, in case they break. But I would like to last.
Well, I want to say hello, X. I really hope that your future is good. We're all working for it. The scientists are working for a good future. The artists are working for a good future. We want to make the right decisions with genetics or anything else, and medicines and who owns what, because we do care about 50 years' time.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's a good one. We want X to have a good life. Yeah, we want X to have a really good life.
Thank you very much. Science is important. Thank you, scientists. Are you staying?
I'm going to go pretty soon.
Any last thought from you? There are still people.
Yeah.
Who can hear you?
Well, I just okay. I don't have any last thought, but my middle thought is that we are we are a brilliant species, and that we have become disconnected from nature right now, and if we reconnect with nature and learn from the indigenous people how to do that, then we too will become ecosystem engineers, and we too will be good for the planet, because we are just as much a part of nature as everything else. It's just that we are out of balance, and we need to rediscover that all of nature is a part of ourself and is inside of us. That outside is actually inside, topologically.
We are here in. We are in nature here.
Yeah, this is our self, and this is just a little piece of that self. So
we need to take the time to.
Well, I'll tell you a wonderful thing. Albert Einstein and many of the indigenous people, when they look out at the stars, they do not look out, they look in at the stars. And they experience, and you can all do this, but it's really tricky for the older you get. You can experience that the stars are actually inside of us, and I'm talking about scientifically. And if you can do that, you will experience the whole planet as family.
Thank you very much. And also, before you're leaving, it would be Hello X is a growing community of people thinking collectively and shaping something positive. And it would be great to have your contacts so that we stay in contact with you and to share our thoughts and hopefully hear your thoughts or follow your thoughts. You can. Is someone writing down contacts?
Yes, that's me.
You don't have to do that, but it's our idea is to learn from each other, listen to each other, and thank you very much for your story from the bear.
I'm going to get his information, if possible.
Oh, that's great! If you are sharing information between each other.
Well, I just have my email. I have my Facebook. I mean, I don't have anything much yet.
I feel like I've encountered you somewhere.
Yeah, you look familiar too.
Hudson Valley.
I don't know about that. I do lecture at universities sometimes, and like I was in Iceland at the Solimar Institute, and then I was in Scotland at the Findhorn Institute. And, I don't know.
Maybe I've seen a lecture on YouTube.
Maybe that's it.
But I don't know how you'd know me. Did you go see a lecture with Darren Doherty and Monica?
Maybe we can get more people.
You want to stay?
I'll write down.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay. Are you together?
Yes, we are married.
Did we meet in Tromsø?
Yes. That's awesome.
Okay.
We met around this table at your place.
Of course.
I think so.
I'm under the heat here. Of course.
Yeah, we were sharing bacalao.
Yeah, of course. How are you?
Good.
Great that you're back.
Thank you. Yeah, I just missed a bit. I just got like some pieces.
Very
How was this round?
amazing stories. Amazing stories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How did you start, or how did it go? I heard
We started with a toddler.
Yeah.
It was the son of Sigbjørn Skåden. He's 1 year old, and he analyzed the microphone. And his father is a writer, and he spoke in Sami about the future. We need to find someone to translate that for us. Maybe Sigbjørn himself. Do you have any thoughts, or later? You're here to listen.
They're with us.
Oh, they're with you.
Yeah, at the moment it's also a bit in between stage.
No, we're all with Marita.
You're here to listen to music?
Both. I'm volunteering.
Yeah.
So now I was actually listening to some really nice stories from Greenland and
Yeah.
drum dancing.
Yeah. The woman with the mask? Mask?
Yeah, today she had, now it was without a mask. I think that she has like a tattoo.
Yeah, I talked with Adam quite a bit.
Now at 4, I think she works with a mask.
Oh, good.
And then,
We live
I will
mostly
listen
in
to music.
Rosendale, New York, which is like 20 minutes from Woodstock.
I think more because I heard so much about Riddu Riddu living in Tromsø that I thought, okay.
You've never been here?
No,
Together
so I
in the
have
city.
to go.
Performance art space, performance art gallery.
Wonderful.
And Marita's performed in our space, and Adam.
Oh, okay.
And then when we discovered Adam,
You need to listen to our last episode.
Yeah.
Have you?
dragged him
No,
into
I
our
have
space to like
It's
Two women, farmers, and one grandfather from Russia.
all kind of fell in love.
Talk about food.
You can write your email address.
Different
Sorry, I
things.
took up.
We talk about food, our relationship to food. We think a lot about food, as you know. Like We don't have much food around this table now.
I wasn't thinking here.
We usually think about food.
Yeah. When I'm hungry, I think about Can we write down your name?
Of course, yeah.
What is your name? There's only one.
My name is Sean. Can I put it here? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Sean and Evan, Richard are supposed to meet and talk about bears.
Yeah,
Oh, awesome.
You know.
Evan,
Oh, you are?
Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't believe him. He's brilliant.
Yeah.
I don't even know him yet, but I already know he's brilliant.
We're going to introduce
He
you.
has a lot of books.
Yeah,
We'll
does
bring
he?
you to him.
He's
Yeah.
a weird cat, and he's a really good musician.
Yeah, that's how I first knew that
Are you collecting contacts?
He's probably hanging out in the Sammy tent, which I need to go talk to those guys.
If she has all the
I
contacts.
just discovered that I might be Sammy.
Please.
Come on.
I texted
You're
my dad.
amazing.
That was fun, right?
That was amazing.
Look who's talking. Look who's talking. The second I saw you, you were like, woo, and I was like, disco, and we were all, we have the same, just weird energy. Not the same, but off the locust together. So I'm glad to meet you too.
I was just looking at your picture.
But here, baby. Oh wait, we can go up each other's nose. It's really good. It's really good. Oh, that was fun.
That's your
Oh yes. Right. And
for
my
collecting
onions.
collecting tomatoes.
We should listen to some spit.
Yeah.
We had some people kissing, and it was making music on their tongue.
Different from tomato?
2 tongues. Yeah, it was really different. Maybe if